concept of a hero has been an integral part of storytelling since probably the dawn of time. I've been doing some reflecting recently about the channel and the topics I've discussed, and even though these topics span various movies, anime, books, etc., at the end of the day, they're really all just different stories, and storytelling is a universal phenomena, a way to express ourselves and our deepest thoughts and feelings, a reflection of our own human condition. Through our stories, we reveal our societal values, our aspirations and dreams, and our moral frameworks, with the hero archetype being a foundational pillar that has journeyed with us throughout the ages. Extraordinary figures who embody our highest ideals and the most profound struggles of their respective cultures and eras. But what is a hero? And does the concept of a hero mean the same thing to everyone? That's what I want to explore in today's video. The evolution of the heroic archetype in Western fiction, tracing its development from ancient myths all the way through to modern literature, examining the complex interplay between fictional heroes and the societies that create them. Before we begin, let's try to define what I consider to be a hero.
A hero can be anyone, even a man doing something as simple and reassuring as putting a coat around a young boy's shoulders.
At its most fundamental level, I believe a hero can be defined as a character who demonstrates exceptional qualities in the face of adversity. These qualities may include physical prowess, intellect, moral integrity, or any kind of combination of these. They're meant to inspire, challenge, and sometimes even provoke, pushing the boundaries of what is considered possible or sometimes even acceptable within their cultural context. However, I recognize that these specific attributes that define heroism are far from universal. As societies evolve, so too does their conception of what makes a hero. The brave warrior of ancient epics may seem one-dimensional or even problematic to modern readers, while contemporary anti-heroes might appear morally bankrupt to audiences of previous eras. So let's now start by casting ourselves all the way back to the era of ancient mythology, where gods and mortals intermingled and the true nature of the world was still shrouded in ambiguity. The age from which Western civilization can trace its roots, ancient Greece. Hesiod was a very influential ancient Greek poet, from the same kind of time period as Homer, the author of the Iliad and the Odyssey. In his poem, Works and Days, Hesiod described 5 ages of mankind, with the 4th age being the age of heroes. This age, which preceded Hesiod's own time, which he termed the Age of Iron, was believed to be the period during which many of the greatest Greek heroes lived and accomplished their legendary deeds. The heroes of this 4th age mostly conform to a distinct archetype. Individuals, mostly men, who possessed exceptional qualities that set them apart from ordinary mortals. Many of these heroes were demigods, the offspring of a divine parent and a mortal one, and it was this divine lineage that endowed them with superhuman abilities, placing them in a unique position between the realms of gods and humans. For example, Heracles, or as he's known today, Hercules, was the strongest man alive, and Odysseus was the most cunning. Central to the Greek conception of heroism is the principle of arete. While it's often translated simply as virtue or excellence, arete encompasses a far more complex and nuanced idea in Greek thought. At its core, arete represents the act of living up to one's full potential in all aspects of life, embodying the highest qualities of human achievement and character. For heroes like Achilles or Hector, arete manifests as prowess in battle, courage in the face of danger, and the ability to lead men. For Odysseus, arete was shown through his cunning, his adaptability, and his perseverance in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. So, where did this idea come from? Initially, arete was largely an aristocratic ideal. The Greek nobility believed that their elevated social status came with a responsibility to excel, to be the best.
I'm better! I am better!
And this excellence was expected to manifest in all aspects of life, in physical prowess, in intellectual capacity, in moral character, and in social grace. The aristocratic nature of arete is reflected in the origin of the word aristocracy itself, which literally can be translated to rule of the best. However, as Greek society evolved, so too did the concept of arete. With the rise of the city-states and the gradual emergence of more democratic forms of government, the idea of arete began to extend beyond just the nobility. For Aristotle, for example, different roles and contexts called for different manifestations of arete. The arete of a soldier would be different from that of a statesman or a craftsman, but all would involve excelling in one's particular function. And this multifaceted nature of arete is also reflected in the portrayal of the Greek heroes. Heracles, for example, is renowned for his divine strength, but many of his 12 labors also required cunning and problem-solving, as well as simple brute force. His cleaning of the Augean stables in a single day, accomplished by diverting 2 rivers, demonstrates both physical might and clever thinking. What's also important to understand is that arete was not just about what heroes did, but who they were. Their excellence defined their very identity. We can really see this in the Odyssey by Homer. When Odysseus is offered immortality by Calypso, he refuses, choosing instead to return home and reclaim his identity as the king. For Odysseus, a mortal life of excellence is preferable to an eternal existence without it. And this idea was really important to the ancient Greeks. The belief that a life of arete, even if finite, was far more valuable than an endless life without purpose or excellence. Where arete represented the internal drive for excellence, kleos was the external recognition. It's often translated as glory or renown, but basically what it means is the fame and reputation that a hero earned through their accomplishment of great deeds, like defeating the Hydra or slaying Medusa. It may be tempting to relate this to our modern-day celebrities, but in ancient Greek thought, kleos was far more than simple celebrity status. It was a form of immortality, a way for heroes to live on in the memories and stories of future generations. The origin of this concept is deeply rooted in the oral culture of ancient Greece. The word itself is derived from the Greek verb to hear, highlighting its connection to spoken fame. In a society where written records were scarce and many people couldn't even read, oral tradition was the primary means of preserving history. So in a way, you can think of kleos as literally what others hear about you. Tying this in to what we were talking about with arete, the importance of kleos in Greek culture is that it offered a form of immortality. By performing great deeds worthy of song and story, a hero could ensure that their name and achievements would be remembered long after their physical body had perished. Again, if we look at Homer's works, we can see how central this concept is. In the Iliad, Achilles explicitly chooses a short life with great kleos over a long life of obscurity. He knows that by fighting and dying at Troy, his name will be remembered forever in song and story. And the Odyssey is largely driven by Odysseus' desire to maintain and reclaim his kleos. His struggles to return home are not just about reuniting with his family, but also re-establishing his fame and identity. And it was this desire for kleos that drove heroes to undertake great quests, face terrible monsters, and risk their lives in battle. It is worth noting here that while it was typically associated with martial prowess, kleos could also be earned through other forms of excellence. For example, Orpheus through his music, and Daedalus through his craftsmanship. This interplay between arete and kleos is what's crucial for understanding the Greek idea of heroism. Arete was the means to achieve kleos. Excellence led to renown. The other thing that's important to talk about with the ancient Greeks is, of course, the role of the gods. The Greek gods were active participants in the world of mortals, shaping the destinies of heroes and often directly intervening in their quests. As I mentioned earlier, many Greek heroes were actual demigods, which granted them exceptional abilities that set them apart from ordinary humans. And even heroes who weren't demigods themselves often had divine patrons. Again, Odysseus was frequently aided by Athena, the goddess of wisdom. The gods' involvement in heroic quests was often unpredictable. They could be sources of crucial aid, providing heroes with magical items, information, or direct assistance in times of need. For example, Perseus received many items from the gods in his quest to slay Medusa. However, the gods could also pose significant obstacles or tests for heroes to overcome. Hera's hatred of Heracles led to her causing the madness that resulted in him killing his own family, a tragic event that set the stage for his 12 labors. In essence, the gods in Greek mythology were not just powerful beings to be worshipped, but integral parts of the heroic narrative landscape. They were sources of aid and obstacle, of blessing and curse, and of inspiration and caution. This portrayal of the gods reflected the Greeks' own view of the world, of natural phenomena and disasters they couldn't explain. The influence of Greek heroic archetypes extended far beyond the boundaries of their own country. The Romans, for example, adapted many of the Greek heroes and stories, and as Greek and Roman culture spread across Europe, their heroic ideals were absorbed and transformed by other cultures. Let's now jump further into the future to see how the rise and spread of Christianity influenced and reshaped these ancient ideas about heroes in Europe, focusing in on the medieval ages. As Europe emerged from the fall of the Roman Empire and entered the Middle Ages, new social structures, religious beliefs, and cultural values reshaped the heroic ideal. The heroes of medieval literature, whilst inheriting some aspects from their classical predecessors, also embodied a distinct set of qualities and virtues, and they faced challenges that were uniquely reflective of their time. The most profound influence on the evolution of heroism in the medieval period was probably the rise of Christianity as the dominant religion in Europe. This had several important implications for the concept of a hero. Firstly, there was a significant shift away from the polytheistic, morally ambiguous world of Greek myth towards a monotheistic Christian worldview that emphasized absolute moral values. Heroes were expected to embody Christian virtues and fight against clearly defined evil, and God, the Christian God, was seen as a guiding, benevolent influence, in contrast to the more whimsical and capricious Greek gods. And what this did was, it gave rise to the idea of divine purpose. Unlike Greek heroes, who often acted for personal glory, kleos, which we were talking about, medieval heroes were frequently portrayed as instruments of divine will. Knights and warriors no longer fought solely for personal fame, but instead as servants of God, defenders of the faith, and protectors of the weak. We can see this clearly in the story of the Holy Grail. The quest for the Grail was not just a search for a powerful artifact, but also a deeply spiritual journey. Only the purest and most virtuous of knights could hope to achieve the holy relic. Sir Galahad, the epitome of spiritual purity among Arthur's knights, successfully completed the Grail quest, not through martial prowess or cunning, but through his unwavering faith and moral perfection. And this ties into another new idea about the concept of a hero: humility. Medieval heroes often found themselves navigating a delicate balance between worldly renown and Christian humility. The valor and strength that made a knight famous could potentially conflict with the Christian virtues of modesty and self-effacement. This tension created a new kind of internal conflict for heroic figures: the struggle to reconcile the desire for earthly glory with the pursuit of heavenly rewards, became a common theme in medieval heroic literature. Moreover, the nature of the challenges faced by heroes evolved in this new Christian context. While classical heroes primarily battled external foes, such as monsters, rival warriors, or even the gods themselves, medieval heroes often grappled with internal, spiritual adversaries. Temptation, sin, and moral failure became opponents in their own right, and the hero's ability to resist worldly temptations and overcome spiritual pitfalls were often portrayed as being just as crucial as their skill in physical combat. While Christianity played a crucial role in reshaping heroic ideals, it was not the only factor in play. The feudal system, which dominated medieval European society, gave rise to the knightly class and the code of chivalry, with its emphasis on loyalty, honor, courage, and courtly love, which provided an ethical framework for heroic behavior. Loyalty, in particular, was very important to the medieval heroic ideal.
We use words like honor, code, loyalty.
The feudal system was built on a network of oaths and obligations between lords and their vassals. Loyalty to one's lord was a sacred duty, and this fealty sometimes created tension in heroic narratives, particularly when it came into conflict with other loyalties, to gods, to one's personal honor, or even to courtly love.
So many vows. They make you swear and swear.
Just to be clear, martial prowess was still really important. You have the idea of tournaments and jousts, which allow for heroes to demonstrate their valor and their skill. But the idea of chivalry demanded more than just this martial skill. A true hero was expected to temper his strength with mercy, to protect the weak and defenseless, and to display courteous behavior, especially towards women. Tales of knights rescuing damsels in distress, or defending the poor from tyrannical lords, or showing mercy to defeated foes, became common tropes. The legend of King Arthur is probably the most recognizable and comprehensive exploration of medieval heroic ideals. King Arthur himself embodied the perfect balance of warrior prowess and wise leadership. His establishment of the Round Table represented an idealized chivalric society where knights from diverse backgrounds could come together in a true brotherhood of equals, united in their service to the king and to their quest for adventure and honor. The various knights of the Round Table represented different aspects of the heroic ideal. Lancelot, often considered the greatest of Arthur's knights, exemplified both the heights of chivalric virtue as well as its potential pitfalls. His unparalleled skill in combat and his courtly demeanor made him the paragon of knighthood, but his adulterous love for Queen Guinevere ultimately contributed to the fall of Camelot. The heroism of medieval literature represented a significant evolution from its classical predecessors. Although the importance of individual excellence and martial prowess was retained, there were also new elements of spiritual warfare and chivalric virtue. Heroes were presented not just as mighty warriors or cunning individuals, but also moral exemplars and defenders of a Christian social order. Let's now jump forwards in time again, this time looking towards the Renaissance and Enlightenment periods, the age of scientific and intellectual revival. The dawn of the Renaissance in the 14th century and the subsequent Enlightenment period marked a profound shift in European thought, culture, and literature. This intellectual revolution naturally extended to the concept of heroism, transforming it in ways that both drew from and reacted against earlier traditions. As Europe emerged from the medieval period, the heroic ideal evolved to reflect new values of individualism, reason, and human potential. No longer were heroes primarily seen as divinely chosen figures or noble warriors upholding a chivalric code. Instead, the Renaissance hero increasingly embodied the ideal of the so-called universal man, or the Renaissance man, an individual of wide-ranging talents and interests. This shift towards a more human-centered heroism was fueled by several factors. The rediscovery of ancient Greek and Roman texts brought classical ideas about heroism back into the European consciousness. The rise of humanism placed a new emphasis on individual potential and achievement, and the growing power of city-states and secular rulers challenged the dominance of religious institutions, leading to a more worldly conception of heroism. Literature of this period began to explore more complex and nuanced heroes. Works like Don Quixote, a story about an aging nobleman who loses his sanity from reading too many chivalric romances, both critiqued and celebrated heroic ideals, presenting characters who grappled with the gap between idealism and reality. This new complexity in heroic figures reflected the Renaissance's more sophisticated understanding of human nature and its contradictions. As the Renaissance gave way to the Enlightenment in the 17th and 18th centuries, the concept of heroism underwent further transformation. The Enlightenment's emphasis on reason, empiricism, and individual rights led to a more secular and intellectually driven heroic ideal. This period also saw the rise of the noble savage archetype, an idealized view of man untainted by civilization. This concept, explored in works by writers like Rousseau, served dual purposes. It offered a critique of European society, whilst also presenting a romanticized view of humanity's so-called natural state. The noble savage became a heroic figure embodying virtues supposedly lost to civilized society, challenging readers to reconsider their assumptions about progress and morality. The quest for knowledge became a new kind of heroic journey. Works like Dr. Faustus, and then later Faust, explored the heroic pursuit of knowledge and its potential consequences.
Satan is a master of lies. Everything he says is the opposite.
These stories reflected the Enlightenment's celebration of human potential, while also acknowledging the moral complexities and potential dangers of unchecked ambition. The evolution of heroism in this period also reflected changing social structures and emerging capitalist values. The idea of the self-made man began to take root, with heroes achieving greatness through their own efforts rather than inherited privilege. This shift mirrored the rising influence of the middle class and the gradual erosion of aristocratic power. Characters like Robinson Crusoe embodied this new ideal, showcasing ingenuity, self-reliance, and adaptability as heroic traits. These changes in the concept of heroism both reflected and influenced broader societal shifts. The move towards more human, flawed heroes mirrored the increasing secularization of European society, and the emphasis on reason and individual achievement aligned with the scientific revolution and the emergence of modern democratic ideals. Let's now turn the clock forwards once more, this time looking towards the 19th century, the Victorian era. The 19th century was a period of unprecedented change, marked by the Industrial Revolution, scientific advancements, social upheavals, and the rise of nationalism. These sweeping transformations had a profound impact on literature and the concept of a hero. The early 19th century saw the flourishing of Romanticism, a movement that emphasized emotion, individualism, and the magnificence of nature. The romantic hero, building on the foundations laid in the Enlightenment, was often a solitary figure, at odds with society and driven by powerful passions. This new heroic archetype reflected the Romantic belief in the importance and significance of individual experience and emotion over societal norms and rational thought. The Byronic hero, popularized by Lord Byron's works, became a dominant figure, a charismatic, brooding character with a dark past and a disdain for typical social conventions. As the century progressed, the heroic ideal evolved in response to the rapid changes brought about by industrialization and urbanization. The realist movement began to challenge romantic ideals, seeking to depict life as it truly was, rather than as it ought to be. This shift reflected a growing disillusionment with romantic idealism and a desire to grapple with the complexities of modern life. Heroes in realist literature were often ordinary people facing moral dilemmas in everyday situations, their heroism lying in their struggle to navigate the challenges of a changing world, rather than in grand idealistic gestures.
I don't like it here. I'm tired of being afraid all the time. I've decided not to stay.
In Britain, there was the emergence of the so-called great man theory of history, which posited that history is shaped by exceptional individuals. This idea influenced the portrayal of many heroes in literature, giving rise to characters who embodied the concept of the transformative individual rising above circumstances to effect change. The latter part of the century then saw the emergence of new genres that would significantly impact the concept of heroism. Detective fiction, for example, presented a new kind of hero, one who triumphs through intellectual prowess rather than physical strength or moral virtue. And this reflected the growing value placed on rationality and deductive reasoning in an increasingly scientific age. Science itself began to influence heroic ideals. Exploration and scientific discovery became new arenas for heroic achievement, reflecting the era's faith in progress and the expansion of human knowledge. However, as the century drew to a close, the seeds of modernism were being sown. Authors began to deconstruct traditional notions of heroism, presenting darker, more ambiguous visions that foreshadowed the crisis of values that would characterize much of 20th century literature.
Which would be worse? To live as a monster, or to die as a good man?
The evolution of heroism in 19th century literature reflects the era's complex and often contradictory nature. It was a time of great optimism about human progress, yet also of deep anxiety about the changes brought about by industrialization and scientific advancement. As we move into the 20th century, these complexities will only deepen. Let's now do that and jump ahead once again to the 20th century, the Atomic Age. The dawn of the 20th century ushered in an era of unprecedented change, marked by rapid technological advancement, global conflicts, and profound social upheavals. These seismic shifts in the human experience inevitably transformed the concept of heroism in literature. Perhaps the most significant catalyst for this transformation was the outbreak of the two world wars. These conflicts, with their unprecedented scale of mechanized slaughter, shattered many long-held beliefs about heroism, and especially the romantic notions of glory in battle. The literature emerging from this period reflected a profound disillusionment with these traditional heroic ideals. Works like All Quiet on the Western Front presented a stark, unromantic view of war, portraying soldiers not as glorious heroes, but as ordinary individuals struggling to survive and maintain their humanity in the face of industrialized warfare. The hero of these narratives was often simply the one who endured. The interwar period also saw the rise of modernist literature, which rejected the grand narratives and clear moral structures of earlier works. Modernist writers created complex, often anti-heroic characters who reflected the fragmentation and uncertainty of the modern world. Works like Ulysses reimagined classical heroic journeys in mundane and everyday settings. However, whilst mainstream literature was moving towards more complex and often unheroic protagonists, the 20th century also saw the birth and explosive growth of the superhero genre, beginning with the creation of Superman in 1938. superheroes offered a return to a more straightforward notion of heroism, perhaps showing a lingering desire for unambiguous heroic figures in an increasingly complex and morally ambiguous world. These characters explored themes of power, responsibility, and the role of the individual in society. As the century drew to a close, the concept of heroism in literature had become far more complex and multifaceted than ever before. Heroes could be ordinary individuals facing extraordinary circumstances, flawed characters grappling with their own nature, or idealized figures embodying society's highest aspirations. This diversity reflected a world grappling with rapid change, moral ambiguity, and an increasingly global perspective. The evolution of heroism in 20th century literature set the stage for further transformations in the 21st century. As we moved into the new millennium, the concept of the hero would continue to evolve, shaped by new technologies, new global challenges, and changing societal values. Originally for the 21st century, I had a much longer discussion planned out. But the more I thought about it, the more I actually feel it's too early to definitively highlight trends about what it might mean to be a hero in our current century. I may make a separate video about this in the future, perhaps once I've had a bit more time to reflect on the last couple of decades. But for now, I just want to quickly highlight a couple of trends that I've personally noticed. So the first and most striking trend I've noticed is the growing sense of cynicism and distrust towards traditional institutions and authority figures. This cynicism has really bled into our storytelling, and heroes are often marked by disillusionment and skepticism.
Superman was never real. Just the dream of a farmer from Kansas.
We're increasingly seeing heroes navigating a murky, ambiguous landscape where traditional notions of right and wrong seem inadequate, and the status quo is constantly being questioned. This area in particular, I would really like to explore in the future, so if you're interested in this, definitely let me know. Moving on to the second point, globalization has also had a profound impact. As our world has become increasingly interconnected, the scope of heroic action has expanded beyond just local or national concerns to really encompass global issues. And I believe this shift reflects a growing awareness of our interconnectedness and the far-reaching consequences of our actions. As I said, we're still in the early stages of the 21st century, and the trends we see now might be superseded by new developments or events in the future. Will the cynicism we see now persist? Or will there be a swing back towards more traditional heroic ideals? How will emerging technologies like artificial intelligence or virtual reality reshape our understanding of heroic actions? These questions remain open, waiting to be answered as the century unfolds. The journey of the heroic archetype through Western literature reflects the profound changes in our own society's values and understanding of human nature. From the earliest myths to our modern-day narratives, the concept of heroism has undergone a complete transformation, mirroring our evolving worldview and the complexities of our own existence. One really interesting thing for me to see is that the pedestal once reserved for gods and kings now accommodates ordinary individuals performing extraordinary acts of courage, kindness, and perseverance in everyday life. And I think this shift speaks to the growing recognition of the heroic potential within each person. Throughout the entire evolution of the concept of a hero, the core function has remained constant: to inspire, to challenge, and to embody the values and aspirations of their time. Heroes have and will continue to serve as a mirror to society, reflecting our hopes, fears, and the tension between individual desires and collective responsibilities. As we look towards the future, it's very clear that the concept of heroism will continue to evolve, adapting to new challenges and changing norms. The journey of the hero through literature is not just a chronicle of changing literary trends, but a testament to the adaptability and resilience of the human spirit. It tells the story of how we, as a society, have grown, changed, and continually redefined what it means to be truly heroic. And that's the video for today, guys. If you've listened this far, thank you very much for listening, and I really appreciate it. This is the longest video I've done on this channel, and I'm also trying something a bit different with this video. This is a topic I found really interesting, but I've been putting off doing because of how massive the scope of it is. So even though I'm always interested to hear what you guys think, for this video in particular, I'm extremely interested to know if you guys liked this, if it worked for you, and if you'd like to see more videos like this or other videos of a similar length. So definitely leave a comment and let me know. Otherwise, thanks again for watching. If you'd like to see more from this channel, please do like, subscribe, and let me know, as it really does help me and the channel out. See you next time.